Good morning, everyone. So, so today we are discussing the OOPS concept and it's all the fundamental question asked during the interview. So let's start with the basic. What is OOPS? Okay. So actually, the OOPS is object-oriented programming. It is a model or a paradigm which revolves around the concept of object. Okay, as the name suggested, and the object can be considered as a real-world instances of entities like classes that contain some characteristic and the behavior specific in the class template. Okay, in simple term, a simple language, we can say a class can be considered as a blueprint or template. Okay, class can be considered a blueprint or template based on which an object can be created. Actually, the class is a frame in which the object is created. An object are considered as the instance of the class. Okay, and therefore sometimes called as an instance, and the term characteristic refer what about the term characteristic refer what about the object and the term behavior. Okay, therefore how about the object. For example, if we consider a car, then based on the OOPS model, the class, what is the class? A specific car model such as Audi, BMW, Maruti Suzuki, all these are the classes. And object, a specific car of any model like car you have or you own. This is the object. Characteristic, what is the color of the car? What is the chassis number of the car, etc. And behavior, how to start a car, how to change the gear in a car, all these are the behavior. Characteristics are known as the data and the attribute or property. Okay, and the behavior are known as the function, procedure, method, and the programming language. The concept object allow OOPS model to easily access, use, and modify the instance data and the method. Okay, to interact with the object and define the method in runtime during the execution of the program. This gives the OOPS model a significance and make a diverse implementation. In fact, OOPS model is so popular that many of the mostly widely used programming language support, and they use this object-oriented programming model: Java, C++, Python, and C Sharp. Okay, so let's start with the first question. What is the need of OOPS? Why? So the need of OOPS. Why we need of OOPS? There are many reasons why OOPS is most preferred. But the most important among them is OOPS help to understand the software easily. Okay, software easily through they don't know the actual implementation. Okay, so actually OOPS make let's say. um, so why, when the question is why we need OOPS. Okay, OOPS. The first question is because it helps the user to understand the software easily, although they don't know the actual implementation. This is like a developer know the code very well, but when we have to explain with the person who don't know the implementation, how we implement the software and something, then we need OOPS. Okay, the no knowledge without knowledge a person, without without knowing the implementation. So actually, first reason is that OOPS helps the user to understand the software easily, although they don't know the actual implementation. With the OOPS, the readability, understandability, and maintainability of the code increases in multifold. So by using the OOPS, we can make our code more readable, more maintainable, okay, more accessible, okay, readable, maintainable, or understandable. Okay, you can understand any user without the knowing the actual implement can understand the code easily. Okay, and Even a big software can easily return and manage using the OOPS. Many of the real world application or real world software have the many implementation and actual implementation and very big code database. Okay, code database. Okay, so we through whips can we can make manageable. Okay, make a large code into a small chunk of code by using all the property of the OOPS. So why we need OOPS? Because it make a user to understand the code, understand the software easily without knowing the implementation. With OOPS, we can make the code and everything and readable, understandable, maintainable, and increase the course readability. Okay, even very big software can easily be written and manageable using the OOPS. The next question is that what are the some major what are the some major object oriented programming language? Actually, OOPS has a wide variety. So language support, for the OOPS. So it support many of the language. Example: C++, Java, Python, and C Sharp. Okay. So the programming language that use and follow the object-oriented programming paradigms or the OOPS are known as object-oriented programming. Okay, and some of the major object-oriented programming language include Java, C++, JavaScript, Python, PHP, all these things, and many more. Let's move for the third question. What are some other programming paradigms other than OOPS? What are the other programming paradigms or other implemented things that are other than the OOPS? The first one, programming paradigms refer to the method of classification of programming language based on their feature. Programming paradigms refer to the method of classification of programming language based on their feature. There are mainly two type of paradigms. Okay, one is imperative programming paradigms. The second one is declarative programming paradigms. So now these paradigms can further classify as just like imperative. Imperative programming paradigms mean that imperative programming focus on how to execute a program logic. Okay, the two type of programming paradigms. One is imperative. Second one, and second one is declarative. Second one is declarative. Okay, okay, declarative. Why we use that much? Okay, so in which imperative there is different type in which how to execute a program logic. We focus on uh, how to execute the program language, like procedural oriented programming, in which procedural programming specify the step a program must take to reach the desired state using the read in order from the top to bottom. Okay. Second one is object-oriented programming, in which we organize the program as an object and contain some data and behavior. We organize the program as an object and contain some data and behavior. Okay. After that, parallel programming paradigms break the task into subtasks and focus on
बंगाली को भी आ गया होगा।
हम्म,
नहीं, बंगाल जब तक पूछोगे नहीं बताएगा नहीं।
okay, let's start. First one, imperative, in which we see the procedural, object-oriented, and parallel programming. After that, a declarative programming paradigms, in which a logical programming paradigms, functional programming paradigms, and the database programming paradigms. They focus on the formal logic, focus on the functional, how the program construct and apply the composing function. And third one is a database programming. When a database programming model is used to manage the data and information structured as a field in this type of. So let's move. What is the meant by structured programming? So structured programming refers to the method of programming which consists of completely structured control flow. Here the structure refers to the block which contain the set of rules. Okay, structure means a block which contain the set of rules. So structural programming, programming in which there is a set of rules. A block consist consist of set of rules. Okay, consist set of rules and completely structure and flow. And nearby all the programming paradigms include structural programming. Okay, what are the main feature of the OOPS? Why they are highly renowned? Okay, because OOPS has a feature. OOPS, I mean object-oriented programming, mainly comprise the following four features. Make sure don't miss any of these. First one, inheritance, encapsulation, polymorphism, and data abstraction. These are the four pillar of the object-oriented programming, through which we can make our code more readable, understandable, and accessible, through which a normal person who don't know the actual implementation know. And even the big database we can manage into small chunk of code through these of the using these three pillar. Okay, so what are some advantages of the OOPS? What are the advantages? After knowing all these features, these are the advantage. So OOPS is a very helpful in the solving the very complex level problem. For the as we discussed, it solve the big data, it manage the big data. So it help in maintaining the big and complex code. Okay, maintaining big and complex code. Okay, and after a complex level of the problems. Okay, highly complex program can be created and handle and maintain easily using the object oriented programming. And the highly also similarly, it is a continuation of this statement. Help to it help in it highly complex program can be created, through which an highly complex program created can be created program can be created. Okay, and OOPS promote the code reuse, reducing and redundancy. Okay, so another feature, it help to code reusability. One of the most important feature of the OOPS is code reusability. Okay, it and also reduce the code redundancy, reduce the code redundancy. Okay, and after that, OOPS is based on bottom to up approach. This is whereas the procedural oriented programming is a top to bottom, and this is bottom up approach. Okay, bottom up approach. Okay, and polymorphism offer a lots of flexibility in the OOFs. And after knowing that the polymorphism has many form, it give a lots of flexibility to the OOFs. Okay, these are the some advantages of the OOFs. And why is OOPS so much popular? So OOPS programming paradigm is considered as a better style of programming. Not only it help in writing the complex piece of code easily, but it also allow user to maintain them easily, as well as not only that, the main pillar of the OOPS are abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and the polymorphism make it easier for programmer to solve the complex problem and the real world scenario based problem. This result make the OOPS more popular. Okay, what is meant by the terms OOPS? Okay, all these are the simply definition based question. You after solving these 8 to 9 problem, we understand what is OOPS, why need, types of and the advantage and disadvantages. Okay, what is the meant by the term OOPS? So OOPS refer to the object-oriented programming. It is a programming paradigm that is defined using the object and considered as a real-world instance of the entity's full class, and let them some characteristic and the behavior. Okay, let's move for some advanced OOPS interview question. So the first question is, what is access specifier and what is the significance? Okay, the access specifier, as the name suggested, the special type of keyword which are used to control or specify the accessibilities of entities like class, methods, and some class and methods. Okay, let's understand what is access specifier. As the name suggested, accessing the anything, accessing the what method and the class through which we can with restriction through which we can put a restriction and through which we can access any methods and classes. Okay, so it is a keyword that control how we access our classes and the methods. So mainly access are include private, public, and protected. All these access modifier also play a vital role in achieving the encapsulation, one of the major feature of the OOPS. Okay, access specifier, private, protected, and public. Okay. Okay. After that, why there any limitation of inheritance? Are there any limitation on of inheritance? Yes. With the more power come with the complexon. Okay, complexon. So inheritance is a very powerful feature of the OOPS, but it has some limitation because inheritance needs more time to process. It need to navigate through the multiple classes for the implementation, and it also the class involve the inheritance on this thing. The base class and the child class are tightly coupled together. Okay, if any of the changes we make in our parent class, it highly affect the child class. So yes, there is some limitation on the inheritance. So what are the various type of inheritance? There is many type of inheritance. Firstly, single inheritance. Okay, after that, multiple inheritance, in which single inheritance means that us inherit inherit from a single parent class. Okay, in multiple inheritance, subclass and derived class are from the uh, two superclasses, like A and B are the two superclasses through which all the properties are inherited from the C. Multi-level inheritance means that C have all the properties of B and B have all the properties of A. Okay. Hierarchical inheritance means that one parent class give all and the three subclass can inherit property from the same single parent class. Okay, hybrid, it is a diamond problem based. A give the property to B and B share the property with C. Okay, assembly share the property of C and C share the property with D. This is hybrid. So let's move to the what is subclass. The subclass is a part of inheritance. The subclass is an entity which inherit from the another class, and it also known as a child class. Okay, Define superclass. Superclass is a part of inheritance. Superclass is an entity which allow subclass or child classes to inherit from itself. Okay, this is a drive class. Okay, to which get all the properties from this base class. So this is superclass. Okay, what is interface? An interface refers to a special type of class. Only the declaration of the method is allowed inside the interface. To use the interface, we cannot create object. Instead, you need to implement that interface and define the method for the implementation. Okay, this is the interface definition. So what is meant by the static polymorphism? Static polymorphism is commonly known as the compile time polymorphism. Static, there's two type of polymorphism: static and dynamic. Static is compile time and dynamic is a runtime polymorphism. Okay, let me see, is my live is streaming or not? Static polymorphism is a feature by which object is linked to the respective function or operator based on the value during the compile time. Static or compile time polymorphism can be achieved through the method overloading, and the static polymorphism can be achieved through the method overloading method overloading. So what is meant by the dynamic polymorphism? Dynamic polymorphism or runtime polymorphism is referred to the polymorphism in the OOPS by which the actual implementation of the function is decided. The actual implementation of the function is decided during the runtime or the execution. Dynamic or runtime polymorphism is achieved by the help of method overriding. Okay. In what static polymorphism is a feature in which an object is linked with the respective function operator based on the value during the compile time. And this feature by which actually implemented the function during the runtime. Dynamic or runtime function can be achieved with the help of method overriding. What is difference between overloading and overriding? Okay. So overloading is a compile time polymorphism feature in which the entity has a multiple implementation with the same name. Okay. For example, method overloading or operator overloading. Whereas method overriding is a random polymorphism feature in which the entity has the same name, okay, but their implementation change during the execution. It is a known as method overriding. So method overriding. So what is the difference between method overloading? So overloading, overloading. Actually, the overloading is a compile time. Sorry, compile time. No, is a compile time. So compile time polymorphism. Okay, and it is compile time polymorphism in which the entity has a multiple implementation in which the any entity has a multiple multiple implementation with same name, with the method having the same name, like method overloading and method operator overloading. After that, overriding. So overriding is a runtime. Actually, it is a runtime polymorphism. It is a runtime polymorphism, and in which the entity and has the same name, but their implementation change during the execution. So method overriding. Okay. So how is data abstraction accomplished? Data abstraction is accomplished with the help of abstract method or the abstract class. Okay. So what is the abstract class? The abstract class is a special class that containing the abstract method. Okay. The significance of the abstract class is that the abstract method inside and it are not implemented and only declared. So as a result, when a subclass inherit the abstract class, need to use abstract method. Okay, they need to define or implement them. There is no implementer, any declare. Explain the inheritance with the example. So inheritance is one of the major feature of the object-oriented programming, by which the class by which and the entity and inherit some characteristic and the behavior of some of the entities make their own. The inheritance helps to improve and facilitate the code reusability. Okay, let me explain you with some basic example. Let's take a three different car, truck, different vehicle, car, truck, bus. Okay, these three entities different from one another with one specific characteristic and behavior, but in all three you find one common element like steering wheel, accelerator, clutch, brake. Okay, through these implement or use different vehicles, still they have their own feature which common in all. The vehicle achieve the inheritance. Okay, so vehicle all like a paddle is inheritance. The vehicles are car, bus, type, all the things. The paddle, motor, pickup, sports car, all these things are inherited. So let's move to the next part of this object-oriented programming series. See, what is exception? So exception can be considered a special event which arises during the execution of program at a runtime. So it bring a execution to the halt. So unexpected behavior occur during the execution of any program. It halts the main program. So reason for the exception is mainly due to the position in is mainly position due to the position in the program where the user wants to do something for which the program is not specific, like undesirable inputs. Okay, what is meant by the exception? So no one wants its software fail or crashes. The exception are the major reason for the software failure, and the exception can be handled in the program beforehand and prevent the execution and from being stop working. Okay, through exception handling, we can prevent our software to be from the software to being crash. Okay, some mechanism for the identifying the undesirable state that program can reach and specify the desired outcome. Okay. So most common method used for the exception handling in program. What is the mean by garbage collection in OOPS? So object-oriented programming revolves around entities like object. Each entity consumes memory and there are multiple objects and the classes. So if these objects and their memory are not handled properly, then it might lead to the memory related error. Okay. The garbage collection. The garbage collection refers to the mechanism of handling the memory in a program. Through the garbage collection, the unwanted memory is fed up by removing the object and longer needed. Can we run Java application without implementing the OOPS? No, the Java application based on the object-oriented programming or OOPS concept, and hence they cannot be implemented without it. Thus, can be implemented without OOPS because it supports programming support. Okay. So, what is compile time polymorphism and how it different from the runtime polymorphism? So, okay, there's two type of polymorphism. One is compile time, another is runtime. So compile time polymorphism is known as static or early binding polymorphism, and dynamic mean runtime late binding. Compile time, also known as a static, compile also known as static polymorphism, refer to the polymorphism that happened during the compile time. Okay, and what is the mean of compiler? Decide the save value taken entities in a picture. So compile time, the name of the class compile time polymorphism, in which public we the method name is add and we return something. So make a second method with the same name as this one, this name, and have it pass the different parameter and do different things. Okay, and the third method has same name as these are the compile time polymorphism. Okay, in the example there are four versions of this method, and the first method take two parameter and second take three and fourth. Okay, the compiler look at the method signature and decide which method invoke particularly at the compile time. Okay, now we see the runtime polymorphism. So runtime polymorphism is also known as a dynamic polymorphism, referred to the type of polymorphism that happen at the runtime. Okay, what it means, and it can be decided by the compiler. Therefore, has to be taken depend on the execution. Hence the runtime polymorphism. Example example we have a class any car in which we pass a method move. Okay, another class bike extend the feature of all any vehicle, and in which we use same method but has a different implementation. So this means that we override this method. Okay, what is class? So auxiliary template object, what is instance behavior, and this. What is encapsulation? So as we see, it is a binding. It is one of the important feature of loops in which we can bind the variables and method in a single class. Okay, one can visualize the encapsulation as a method of putting everything required to do job inside a capsule and presenting the capsule to the user. What's it mean that encapsulate all the necessary data and method are bind together, and all the unnecessary detail are hidden to the norm from the normal user. So the encapsulation, the process of binding the data member and method program together to do a specific job without revealing the unnecessary details. Okay. Encapsulation can also be defined into two ways: data binding and data hiding and data binding. Encapsulation also is a process of hiding unwanted information, restricting access to any memory, and data binding. Encapsulation is a process of binding the data and handle together as a whole class. Okay, what is polymorphism? So polymorphism is composed from the word poly and morphism. Poly means many, morph means shape, different shape or different type. So therefore polymorphism refers something that have a different shape. Okay, just example, when we refer to any shape, the circle, square, rectangle, and a rhombus, all these things, simply the same concept used in the OOPS. Okay, polymorphism refers to a process by which some code, data, and method object behave different in different circumstances or contexts. So compile time polymorphism and runtime polymorphism, these are two type of polymorphism we use in OOPS language. Okay, how does C plus support polymorphism? The C plus plus is an object-oriented programming, and it supports polymorphism as well. And there are two types: compile time and runtime. C plus plus support compile time with the help of feature like template, function overloading, and this one. Runtime, C plus plus support runtime with the help of feature like virtual function. And virtual function take the shape of the function based on the type the object in the reference are resolved. Okay, what is meant by the inheritance? The term inheritance means receiving some qualities and behavior from this parent to an offspring. In object-oriented programming, inheritance is a mechanism by which an object or class, referred a class, is created using the definition of another object or the class. Inheritance not only helps to keep the implementation is similar, but also helps to facilitate the code reusability. Okay, what is abstraction? If you are the user and you have a problem statement, We don't know how to how to component of the different software work. So how it's made. So you only know the software solved the problem. The abstraction is a method of hiding the unnecessary details from the necessary ones. It is the main feature of the OOPS. For example, consider a car. Okay. So you need to know how the car run, not how the wire connected, how the brake system tightened by the nut and bolts, all these things, because these are the unnecessary details. They are hidden. Okay. How many memory does it occupy by class? So actually, class do not consume any memory because they are just a blueprint based on which the object is created. And when an object is created, they initialize the class and methods. Therefore, it consumes memory. Okay. So is it necessary to create class from the is it necessary to create object from the class? No. The object is necessary and no, an object is necessary to create it if the base class has a non-static method. But if the class has a static method, the object cannot be created, but you can call the method directly in the case using the class name. Okay. What is constructor? So constructor are the specific method whose name is same name as a class name, and the constructor serve as a specific purpose for initializing the object. Okay. For example, it is same name as a class name and it serve as a special purpose of initializing the object. Okay. For example, suppose there is a class with a class name, and when you initializing your class by passing my class name is equal to new class. Now here the method new, the keyword is and my class is a constructor which help to instantiate the member or data method by this one. Construction mean constructing, destructor mean destroying this. So use my class as a class name or the class what we have to make, and this destructor simply delete something. What are various type of constructor? Default constructor, parameterized constructor. Simply we see the name of class name, same the method's name. So a default constructor in which do not need any argument. Parameterize in which we pass the parameter. Okay. Copy constructor in which we copy this constructor into the this constructor. Okay. Destructor contra for the constructor which initialize to object specific space, and destructor are also special method, but destructor free up the resources. Okay. Are the class are the class and the struct are the same? If not, what is the difference? No, the class and struct are not the same, though they appear to be similar. They have difference that make them apart. For example, struct is saved into stack memory, whereas the class is saved into the data abstraction feature can be achieved in the class. Okay, these are the theory-based question on OOPS. We cover all the important definitions, all the logic. Okay. In next session, we try to solve the basic implementation of the OOPS directly using code. So till now, goodbye.